But, I mean, how do you think the central bank can actually handle this? Because this can actually be a handful.
Yes, you see, it is difficult to put a finger on particular numbers. What is important is to realize the need and the imperative that this economy needs low-cost fund to be able to progress. We should realize that the economy is not just all about preserving exchange rate and lowering inflation. It's also about stimulating growth. And the CBN should realize that it also has a role to play in stimulating growth. I mean, look at many other economies, many other CBN central bank that we have across the globe.
In fact, the ECB is coming up with their own interest rate announcement, which is expected to be at 0.5%.
Exactly. They also think with interest rates to stimulate the economy. It's not as if they also are not concerned about terms of trade, balance of trade, exchange rate. They are concerned. But they are concerned even more about unemployment. If you hear the American president or the UK prime minister talk about the economy, one of the major indices they refer to is the jobs that they have been able to create. They tell you, okay, in this quarter, we will be able to create so much jobs. In this quarter, this is the amount of jobs. They don't talk so much about GDP growth. They don't talk so much about exchange rate. They talk about jobs. And you can create jobs through the stimulation of growth. So, and domestic investors need credit. Cheap credit. I know the SMEs, of course, they have a peculiar problem. Most of them, because of the way they package themselves, poor record keeping and so on, they have problem of accessing credit. But even some of them that even manage to have all of these things, because of the problem of collateral and so on, they can't even access the credit. So the point I'm making is that we need to balance the objective of stability with the objective of growth. And the CBN should also realize that it has some role to play in this. I know the fiscal authorities have bigger role to play in terms of ensuring that the structural issues are addressed. But we cannot fix the structural problems overnight. But you can adjust the interest rate overnight. So interest rate is even a more flexible tool to deal with some of these problems. So what is important is just to ensure the balance between the need for growth, to ensure cheaper credit to domestic investors, so that we don't lose this economy to foreign investors, which is already happening. Domestic investors cannot tap into the opportunities because of fund. They have the ideas, they have the enterprise knowledge, they have the entrepreneurial skills. But without money, what can you do?
Yeah, and these other ones get the cheap funds.
They get cheap funds. They come here and they take advantage of all of the environment that we have.
All right. Another point you made is the investment climate. Now, aside from the credit conditions, which you've just talked about, you mentioned power supply. Now, you picked hole with the upward review of the electricity tariff. Why?
Well, you see, the electricity tariff thing is both an economic issue and a moral issue. You know? Now, we have a situation where the delivery of power, even in many places, have even deteriorated. And you now have a situation where simultaneously tariffs have been programmed to increase over a period, irrespective of the quality of delivery of service. It's a major moral issue. This is not business, it's morality. You cannot be delivering poor service and be increasing your fees.
Well, the explanation or the regulators have given is that, look, we have to increase this tariff so that we can attract investors into this sector.
Tariffs have been increased about 2 or 3 times before now, haven't they? You know, it is, if you want to advance that argument, it is economically or business-wise, it may be good. But at least there has to be some relationship between the tariff that you are increasing and the service that you are delivering. So the outcry is justifiable. And you could see even some of the bills, although some of these things are being corrected, some of the bills are actually outrageous. It could be a billing issue, it could be a policy issue, but some of the bills are actually outrageous. Most of the SMEs in manufacturing in Lagos had to write a serious petition to the NERC when tariffs went up by about 300–500%. It was almost, competing with the cost of diesel. And they had to look into it. But all these things we need to look at. And again, fixed charge. Again, they say that is what happens elsewhere. But how do you justify it? Whether you supply power or not, you pay a particular amount. And this amount could range from maybe 500, 700, even up to 100,000. It's a fixed charge, irrespective of whether you have power or not. That again is debatable. And the fact that it happens elsewhere in the world does not make it right. You should charge people for what service you deliver. What is the value of the equipment you put in somebody's house if there's no power and you have to pay for it? So we have to look at all of these things and see what actually can work in this kind of environment.
All right.
The greater emphasis should be on the delivery of. If you deliver the service, and you now increase fees, it makes more sense. It makes more sense. The service quality is declining, and the tariff is going up. I mean, it doesn't sound good.
All right, you talked about the institutions. Well, talking about the regulatory institutions, you expressed concerns over, the regulations and all that. Could you elaborate more?
You see, institutions are very key to the development of any economy. If you have the best of environment, if you have the best of opportunities, and the institutions of state are frustrating the efforts of investors, it could be a very big problem. Over the first half of the year, we had serious complaints about NAFDAC, particularly with regard to the bureaucracy in product registration. It takes sometimes a year, even 2 years, to get product certification, product registration. The bureaucracy is enormous. And when you have tedious bureaucracy like that, it creates bottlenecks. When you create bottlenecks create corruption. So there have been a lot of complaints about those in the pharmaceutical sector, about the processes with regard to NAFDAC. There are also complaints about SON, again about the process, the time it takes, and even the cost of some of the things they charge for, both NAFDAC and SON. Granted, they have noble objective. The objective is to ensure standards, to check fake drugs, substandard products, which is fantastic. But for those that are living up to expectation by way of standards, within the limits of the environment in which they are, I mean, you should make life at least a bit easy for them. So that when they want approvals, it doesn't take ages before they get approvals. We have at least tried to communicate this to the relevant authorities. The outcome of some of these, our press conference, we are circulating to both the ministry and even these agencies to do a proper audit of their processes. to remove bureaucracy, because bureaucracy breeds corruption, and to also look at the fees that they charge.